And finally, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of chapter 2 is a little bit about the concept of problem solving and decision making and the way that professionals do that. Let's assume for a second that you're the marketing director for the Las Vegas Lights and you have a problem. And the problem could be dwindling attendance, lower season ticket sales, fewer sponsorships, and reduced social media posts. What would you do? Well, the short answer is you should take a professional problem solving perspective. And the way that you do this is the same way that other professionals solve problems. So how does a medical doctor proceed if you come to them and say, I don't feel well? Well, they take your temperature, they take your blood pressure, they take your pulse, they do an examination of you. And if they can't figure out what's wrong, the next thing they do is prescribe some tests, maybe some blood work, maybe a CAT scan, or whatever else it might be to see if they can figure out what's wrong with you. Well, how does an auto mechanic do that? If you bring your car to them and tell her that my car's not running right. Well, they look at the car, they do some quick diagnostics, and then they probably will put the automobile on some sort of a diagnostic routine to see if they can figure out what's wrong with the automobile. So what does a veterinarian do if you bring your pet to them because it's not acting right? Well, veterinarians have to be almost better than medical doctors because your pet can't tell them what's wrong with them. The veterinarian has to observe what's wrong with them. So the veterinarian has to rely on some sort of an examination and testing to see if they can figure out what's wrong with your pet. All of these professionals have protocols for diagnosing problems. You, as a marketing manager, need to take the same approach. You need to analyze the situation to see if you can diagnose the problem. You do not guess at what the root cause of the problem is, and you do not prescribe a solution simply because it worked the last time you had this problem. You look at the data and figure out what's wrong, and more importantly, what's causing it. If you do not have enough information, you go out and get more information. You run the numbers, you run the tests. Marketing managers are data driven, not intuition driven. They study the symptoms the same way a medical doctor would, or the same way that your auto mechanic does, or the way that your veterinarian does working with your pet to make sure that they do not make the wrong diagnosis. And they continue to investigate and figure out the actual root cause of the problem. Finally, then, you take actions to resolve that specific problems. This is a professional approach to problem solving, and it's the one that all professional marketing managers need to use.